Rain hammered the splintered roof of the barn, each drop a cold, relentless reminder of their fragility. Clara clutched her 3 children, Lila, 8, with wide eyes that still held hope, Ben, 6, shivering under a threadbare blanket, and tiny Mia, barely 3, curled against her chest, inside a crumbling shelter that reeked of mold and despair. For 3 days, they'd huddled here, the storm outside mirroring the chaos of their lives. No food, no warmth, just the gnawing fear that this was all they had left. Clara's heart ached as she whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. "We'll be okay, my loves. Just hold on." But as the wind howled through the gaps in the barn's walls, she wondered if hope was just another thing the world had stolen from them. Clara wasn't always this broken. A year ago, she'd been a mother with a modest but happy life in a small Ohio town. She and her husband, Tom, had a cozy rental house, a vegetable garden, and dreams of growing old together. Tom was a carpenter, his hands rough but gentle, always building something: a bookshelf for Lila's stories, a toy truck for Ben, a crib for Mia. But a drunk driver on a slick November night changed everything. Tom was gone in an instant, leaving Clara with a shattered heart, mounting bills, and 3 kids who didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. The landlord, impatient for rent she couldn't pay, evicted them 6 months later. With no family to turn to and savings drained by funeral costs, Clara packed what little they had into a battered suitcase and left, chasing whispers of a job in a neighboring town. But the job fell through, and now here they were, in a barn that wasn't even theirs, with rain seeping through the cracks and hunger gnawing at their bellies. The barn belonged to an abandoned farm, its fields overgrown, its windows boarded. Clara had stumbled upon it after hours of walking, her kids trailing behind, exhausted and scared. It was better than the open road, she'd told herself, though the leaking roof and rotting hay barely qualified as shelter. She'd tried to make it a game for the kids, were camping, like adventurers, but Lila's skeptical frown and Ben's quiet whimpers told her they weren't fooled. Mia, too young to understand, just clung to her, her tiny hands cold as ice. Clara scavenged what she could: a few apples from a nearby orchard, a tarp to block the worst of the rain, but it wasn't enough. Her body ached from carrying Mia, her mind from the weight of their survival. She hadn't slept in days, too afraid to close her eyes, too afraid of what tomorrow might bring. On the 3rd night, as thunder rumbled and the kids slept fitfully, Clara's resolve began to crack. She stared at the dark, jagged outline of the barn's rafters, whispering a prayer she wasn't sure anyone heard. "Please," she murmured, "just give us a chance." Lila stirred beside her, mumbling in her sleep, and Clara brushed a damp strand of hair from her daughter's face. She thought of Tom, of his warm laugh, and how he'd always said they'd get through anything together. But he wasn't here, and she was failing. The guilt was worse than the cold. Morning broke, gray and unforgiving, the rain now a steady drizzle. Clara was rationing the last apple when she heard footsteps crunching outside. Her heart lurched. Someone had found them. She pulled the kids close, whispering, "Stay quiet," her eyes fixed on the barn's sagging door. A shadow appeared, then a figure, a man, tall and broad, his coat soaked through. His face was weathered, lined with grief that seemed to mirror her own, but his eyes were kind, searching. "Hello," he called, his voice low but steady. "Anyone in there?" Clara hesitated, fear warring with desperation. But something in his tone, gentle, not threatening, made her speak. "We're here," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, we don't mean any harm." The man stepped inside, ducking under the low doorway. He was older, maybe late 40s, with gray flecking his dark hair and a slight limp in his step. He carried a flashlight, its beam cutting through the dimness. "Saw the tarp from the road," he said. "Figured someone might be squatting. I'm Daniel. This is my land." Clara's stomach dropped. "We'll leave," she said quickly, gathering the kids' things. "We didn't know." "No, no," Daniel interrupted, raising a hand. "You don't have to go. You're in trouble, aren't you?" His gaze softened as he took in the children, their pale faces and tattered clothes. Lila stared back, curious but wary, while Ben hid behind Clara's leg. Mia, still half asleep, didn't notice. Clara nodded, unable to lie. "We've got nowhere else," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She braced for judgment, for him to tell them to get out, but instead, Daniel crouched to Lila's level, offering a small smile. "You must be cold," he said. "Got a house not far from here. Warm fire, some food. You're welcome to come." Clara's instinct was to refuse. Strangers weren't safe, not with her kids, but the sincerity in his eyes and the way Lila's face lit up at the word, food, made her pause. "Why would you help us?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. Daniel stood, his expression darkening for a moment, as if remembering something painful. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything," he said simply. "Come on, let's get you dry." The walk to Daniel's house was short but treacherous, the muddy path slick under their feet. Clara carried Mia, while Daniel offered a hand to Ben, who took it hesitantly. Lila stayed close, peppering Daniel with questions. "Do you have a dog? Do you live alone? Why's your barn so old?" Daniel answered patiently, his voice steady, though Clara noticed he deflected questions about himself. The house, a modest two-story with peeling paint but a sturdy roof, felt like a palace after the barn. Inside, it was warm, cluttered with books and tools, and smelled faintly of coffee and wood smoke. Daniel handed them blankets and pointed to a couch by the fireplace. "Sit, I'll get something to eat." Clara protested, but he waved her off. Soon, the kids were devouring bowls of hot soup, their chatter filling the quiet house. Clara watched Daniel move around the kitchen, noticing the way he paused sometimes, staring at nothing, as if haunted by ghosts she couldn't see. Over the next few hours, Clara pieced together Daniel's story. He was a widower, his wife, Sarah, gone 3 years from cancer. They'd had a daughter, Ellie, who'd died in the same illness, a double blow that left Daniel alone on the farm. He'd let the fields go fallow, the barn decay, unable to care after losing them. "Didn't see the point," he told Clara later, as the kids slept on the couch. "But seeing you in that barn, it reminded me there's still life out there. Still people who need help." Clara shared her own loss, the words spilling out as if a dam had broken. Tom's death, the eviction, the endless road, they poured from her, and Daniel listened, his silence a kind of understanding she hadn't felt in months. But trust came slowly. Clara couldn't shake the fear that this kindness had a price. She'd heard stories of people offering help only to demand something in return. When Daniel suggested they stay the night, she agreed but kept her suitcase packed, ready to run. The next day, Daniel offered more than a night. "There's a guest room upstairs," he said. "It's small, but it's yours if you want it. I could use help around the place, cleaning, maybe fixing up the barn. You'd be earning your keep." Clara hesitated, pride and fear clashing. She didn't want charity, but her kids needed this, a bed, a roof, a chance. Lila, overhearing, tugged her sleeve. "Please, Mama, I like it here." Clara agreed, but challenges lingered. The kids adjusted quickly, Lila exploring the farm, Ben trailing Daniel like a shadow, Mia giggling for the first time in weeks. But Clara struggled with guilt, feeling like she was failing Tom by accepting help. She also sensed Daniel's own pain, the way he avoided certain rooms, the way his hands shook when he mentioned Sarah. The farm itself was a hurdle, overgrown fields, a leaking barn, tools rusted from neglect. Fixing it felt like fixing themselves, a task too big for either of them alone. Slowly, they found a rhythm. Clara cleaned the house, her hands busy, her mind easing. Daniel taught Ben how to hammer nails, and Lila helped Clara plant a small garden, her questions turning to dreams of growing carrots. Mia's laughter became a daily sound, a balm for Clara's heart. But the biggest challenge came when a social worker, tipped off by a neighbor, visited to check on the kids. Clara panicked, fearing they'd be taken away. Daniel stood by her, vouching for their stability, showing the social worker the guest room, the garden, the life they were building. Their family now, he said, and Clara's throat tightened at the word. Weeks turned to months. The barn, once a symbol of their despair, became a project. Daniel and Clara worked side by side, patching the roof, replacing boards, their hands blistered but their spirits lighter. The kids painted the walls with bright colors, turning it into a playroom. Clara found herself smiling more, her grief not gone but softer, shared with someone who understood. Daniel, too, began to heal, his laughter returning as Ben mimicked his limp or Lila told exaggerated stories. One evening, as the kids played outside, Clara and Daniel sat on the porch, the air crisp with autumn. "You saved us," Clara said, her voice steady now. "I didn't think we'd find home again." Daniel shook his head. "You saved me, too. This place was empty before you came." He paused, then added, "Stay. Not just for now, for good." Clara looked at her kids, their faces lit by the setting sun, and felt Tom's love in her heart, not as pain but as permission to keep living. "We're already home," she said. The barn, once broken, stood strong behind them, a testament to what they'd rebuilt together. Clara knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, grief lingered, and life was unpredictable, but for the first time in a year, she believed they'd face it together. The rain had stopped, and in its place was a quiet, stubborn hope, as enduring as the family they'd become.